Ever wonder how a single man turned a struggling fight promotion into a global powerhouse? The story of Dana White and the UFC is nothing short of legendary. In this video, we'll break down the pivotal decisions Dana White made, from securing critical partnerships to navigating the legal and media landscapes that were stacked against him. You'll learn how he harnessed the power of marketing, built a loyal fan base, and turned the UFC into a must-watch event worldwide. By the end of this video, you'll understand how Dana White's vision and relentless drive reshaped the world of combat sports and built a brand that stands tall among the giants of the sports industry. If you're curious about how to turn obstacles into opportunities and build a legacy in any field, this is a story you won't want to miss. All the information shared in this video comes directly from the official site of the creator's blueprint. We've gathered the most accurate and up-to-date insights to ensure you get the real story behind Dana White's transformation of the UFC. Dana White's transformation of the UFC from a struggling organization into a multi-billion-dollar global phenomenon is a masterclass in vision, strategy, and resilience. His journey with the UFC is marked by several key moves that were instrumental in pulling the organization from the brink of failure and turning it into a mainstream sports empire. One of the first and most crucial moves Dana White made was recognizing the potential in a struggling UFC. At the time, the UFC was deeply in debt, with a tarnished image and no clear path forward. White, who had developed a strong friendship with Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta, owners of Station Casinos and fellow combat sports enthusiasts, convinced them to purchase the UFC for $2 million in 2001. This purchase was the first step in a bold vision to turn the UFC into a legitimate and globally recognized sport. White's foresight and confidence in the sport's potential, even when it was largely dismissed by the mainstream, were key to getting the UFC off the ground. The UFC's early years were plagued by controversy and a lack of regulation, leading to its infamous reputation as human cockfighting. One of Dana White's pivotal moves was to clean up this image and bring the sport into the mainstream. Together with the Fertitta brothers, White worked to introduce standardized rules and regulations, including weight classes and safety measures for fighters. They focused on getting the sport regulated and sanctioned by state athletic commissions, which was essential for gaining credibility. This rebranding effort was critical in changing public perception and making the UFC a legitimate and respected sport. Perhaps the most game-changing move in the UFC's history was the creation of The Ultimate Fighter reality TV show, which aired on Spike TV in 2005. At a time when the UFC was struggling to find a foothold, this show brought the sport into millions of American homes and introduced a new generation of fans to MMA. This was a masterstroke in marketing, as it humanized the sport and helped build a loyal fan base. Throughout his tenure, Dana White has demonstrated an uncanny ability to adapt to changing circumstances and overcome challenges. Whether it was navigating regulatory hurdles, negotiating media deals, or keeping the UFC operational during the COVID-19 pandemic, White's resilience has been a key factor in the organization's success. His adaptability ensured that the UFC could continue growing and evolving in a rapidly changing sports and entertainment landscape. White understood that for the UFC to succeed, it had to shed this image and be seen as a legitimate sport. Working closely with the Fertitta brothers, who had acquired the UFC alongside White, he focused on introducing rules and regulations that would make the sport safer and more appealing to the public. They implemented weight classes, standardized rounds, and enforced stricter safety protocols to protect fighters. These changes were pivotal in getting state athletic commissions to sanction and regulate MMA, which was essential for gaining legitimacy. Dana White also had to navigate significant financial challenges during the early years of the UFC. The Fertitta brothers invested millions of dollars to keep the company afloat, but it wasn't until the success of The Ultimate Fighter that the UFC began to see a return on investment. White's ability to manage these financial pressures while continuing to push for growth was critical to the UFC's survival and eventual success. Moreover, White was instrumental in securing sponsorships and endorsements for the UFC, which were crucial in generating additional revenue and enhancing the brand's visibility. He spearheaded efforts to take the UFC into new markets, including Europe, Asia, and South America. This global strategy not only increased the UFC's fan base, but also established it as a truly international sport. White also focused on building the UFC brand. He understood that the fighters were not just athletes, but also entertainers, and he worked to promote their personalities and stories. This approach helped create stars like Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey, whose mainstream appeal brought even more attention to the UFC. By overcoming negative perceptions, securing crucial media deals, managing financial pressures, expanding globally, and adapting to industry changes, White transformed the UFC from a struggling organization into one of the most recognized sports brands in the world. His leadership not only legitimized MMA as a sport, but also brought it to the forefront of global sports culture. Dana White also recognized the importance of expanding the UFC's reach beyond the United States. Under his leadership, the UFC aggressively pursued international markets, holding events in countries like Brazil, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. This global expansion not only increased the UFC's fan base, but also opened up new revenue opportunities through international broadcasting deals, sponsorships, and ticket sales. In addition to physical expansion, White also embraced digital platforms and social media to engage with fans worldwide. This approach allowed the UFC to build a global community and keep fans connected to the sport 24/7, regardless of their location. One of the most defining moments in the UFC's journey to becoming a billion-dollar business was its sale to WME-IMG, now Endeavor, in 2016 for a staggering $4.025 billion. This deal, which was one of the largest in sports history, was a culmination of all the strategic moves White had made over the years. The sale didn't just bring financial success, it also positioned the UFC for even greater growth. Under Endeavor's ownership, the UFC gained access to a broader entertainment network, enabling it to further integrate into the mainstream sports and entertainment industries. White remained as president, ensuring continuity in leadership and strategy, and continued to push the UFC to new heights. Dana White's transformation of the UFC into a billion-dollar business was the result of a series of well-executed strategies, including strategic partnerships, rebranding, media savvy, star creation, global expansion, and a historic sale. His ability to see the potential in MMA, coupled with his relentless drive to push the boundaries, turned the UFC from a struggling organization into a global sports empire. White's leadership not only revolutionized the sport of MMA, but also created a legacy that will endure for years to come. Dana White's story shows what's possible with the right mix of vision, guts, and hard work. From taking over a struggling UFC to turning it into a global sports giant, White's journey is a masterclass in never giving up and always thinking big. If you're inspired by how he navigated challenges and transformed the UFC into a billion-dollar business, there's a lot more to learn from his playbook. So stay tuned and keep watching. We'll be diving deeper into more stories like this, sharing the secrets behind some of the biggest successes in the sports and entertainment world. You won't want to miss it.